It is Tuesday, June 10th, 2025, and it's 9 a.m. and we're here to discuss Public Works budget and Old River Road milepost 12 surface failures. And I will turn it over to our Public Works Director.
Okay, so I brought a copy of our road department budget for you all. And then I also brought some photos, and I'll kind of go through these as I talk about it. And I wanted to kind of title this to where we could talk a little bit about the budget, as well as what is happening on milepost 12 of Old River Road. So kind of to start off, we've had a complete surface failure at milepost 12 on Old River Road. We've had failures all along the length of the roadway. It's all bad, but this has gotten to the point where it really just blew out. You know, we have alligatoring on a lot of our roadways, and we've seen a couple of them do just this year. This is approximately a 450-foot section long, where the whole roadway looks just like this, and the surface has to come up. Old River Road is kind of a patchwork of some of it has been paved, some of it looks like it's been paved, but it's not been. It's pretty much just been layers of chip seal over the top. And so that's kind of what this section is representing. So everything is coming up. It's just got to come up. There's no patching that could even remotely be done. And this was taken about a week and a half ago. So by every day that we let it sit, it gets worse. And at this point, it's a huge safety issue. Even in a truck going through there, it's kind of coming up onto a soft curve. There are homes right in that section. It's not just residential use or not just recreational use. It is, residential section right through there. So in the budget discussion, that's a 450-foot approximate length, 21 feet wide in width. Inspecting the road, both north and south of that, all of it needs to be redone, but there is a section to the north that's about 245 feet long that is, it's ready to go as well, completely alligatored the full length of that. And so what I'd like to do on more of an emergent type of basis because of the state of this failure is to get up there and fix it. So looking at our budget, we've had some discussions on kind of scaling back a little bit, being a little bit conservative until we hear about the SRS. We have a $100,000 line in our chip oil within our budget that I had talked a little bit in our previous meeting about holding off on that, it possibly not getting done. With where we're at with our staffing, we're down 4 employees. We'll be down a 5th employee next month. Right now, I don't feel like we could adequately do the chip seal job that we were going to do. And when I say chip seal, I'm not talking about the funded one that you guys approved the bid for up Pine Creek. That's a separate project that is contracted out. This is our internal force account project that we're doing. What I'm asking for you, price-wise, to get this done, what I'm proposing is something similar to what we've done with the RAC grant on Old River Road, where we have someone come up with a pulverizer, they pulverize that, they grade it down, and what it does is it creates, a better, more stable base to lay the new pavement on top of. So,
my concern about this is, I've talked to other a chairman over in Coeur d'Alene, one of the road districts.
Sure.
In eastern Idaho, they are unable to fix their pavement, so they are actually removing it. And I don't think we can maintain it and keep it that way. I think roads like this, we need to look at possibly removing it and putting it back to gravel.
That is an option that I discussed with engineering to put on the table. When we downgrade a surface. It does have a little bit of impact on our highway user. We report our improved miles. So instead of improving this or maintaining it, we're kind of downgrading it. We would still get funding for the mileage.
How much money would we lose over
It's definitely not going to be enough to balance fixing this. So it's going to be more like a drop in the bucket. So that is something that was discussed. That being said, if we take it down to gravel, we would definitely, in the beginning, it's definitely going to be more inexpensive. That's something that our crews could most likely do, in-house. We would have to dispose of the material and everything. But we could do that without having to contract that. Or we could contract just to pulverize it and then take it out. So depending on where we land with this.
How far is, so we're at this 450 feet. How far is this to where the road really starts to turn gravel? I mean, how far away are we?
It's not too far. I should have measured that before I came down. I mean, we could take it. What I don't like to do is have pavement, gravel, pavement, gravel. The upper section is gravel. The upper section of Old River Road is gravel. There is quite a little bit of length that goes up that is not gravel, because above that, I think it's a few miles up. I want to say it's a few miles up. It does go to the Castle Rock Ranch, where it is pavement, in front of that. So it does go, this is mile marker 12 that we're talking about. And I think Castle Rock's at, I want to say 15. But I could definitely verify the length. So I'm reluctant to take that many miles up, but it wouldn't be our only section of road where we've had pavement, gravel, pavement, gravel. We would have to put some money into it to bring some material in and, make it suitable. But that's something that we could absolutely do.
And then we just have to grade it if it goes bad again. That's one of the things is the Old River Road. It isn't, I know I know it does have some residential up there, but I know that the chloride mag,
yes,
the dust abatement stuff, it does work.
It does.
It does, and that's something we used to do historically when the budget was bigger. The chloride mag has gotten, pretty expensive, and I think when, I think it was 3 public works directors ago, maybe 4, had to make the decision when things changed around with the revenue coming into our department. We used to do the dust abatement. We used to mag our gravel roads, and we don't anymore, just because it was too cost prohibitive. It does prolong the life of, and over time, several layers of that will make a tougher surface. And so it's something that we had talked about over the last couple of years, maybe moving into that direction. But, we just never got there. I'm not opposed to taking this up and putting it back to gravel surface.
And how's the drainage up there? I've been to Steamboat and I've seen some issues in some other areas.
It's definitely hit and miss with the drainage. Yes.
Yeah, with ditches and culvert placement.
Correct.
Yeah, because I've seen that in other areas where that's part of the problem.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And it's been like that for years and years and years. So it's definitely affecting the roadway. This roadway was not constructed, to our standards now. So of course, when it fails, it's really going to fail.
And and the bigger issue too is we have a lot of timber.
We do.
Going through there.
Correct.
And so this road isn't.
It's getting beat up,
and
it's getting the truck traffic.
Whose road is this?
So this is a Schedule A. This is a Schedule A, and it's one thing that, we have partnered on Old River Road for project agreements. They are slow. Usually it's a year or 2 out, from to ask them to partner with us on a cost share for this portion of the road, would be probably a year to 2 turnaround time by the time we saw anything done with it.
Do we have to ask them before we remove pavement?
I would definitely get with them, depending on if that's the board's recommendation of, what we want to look at doing for a fix. I would absolutely, my next call would be to go upstairs and start the conversation with Forest Service on this.
You had mentioned using the chip oil line item to pay for this. What were you projecting the cost was to resurface it?
This one for the 700 feet, if we were to do it like we had talked about, we would be looking at approximately $50,000. So we could do this section with the pulverization and the pavement.
And what were we going to chip oil that would not get chip oiled?
Silver Valley Road between Wallace and Osborne.
And that,
But at this point, with staffing levels, I don't know that we could complete that project. I mean, it takes everybody when we chip. And I just don't know that we're going to be there because chipping has to be done. You know, you're looking at later July, August. I don't know.
That's one of my biggest concerns because we have not chip sealed for quite
Correct.
a while. And, you know, the roads in Kootenai County, they do it every 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when we don't do that, we get into areas like this where we have to completely redo them. So
Right.
that's what I'm worried about keeping up. And
Sure.
so we got to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
Whether it be a mile or whether it be, you know,
Right.
Yeah.
And up until a couple of years ago, I guess it was probably a year or two before I came on at this department. So within the last 4 years, prior to that, we didn't even have a chip oil budget. You know, it just wasn't even accounted for in our budget. That was something that my predecessor did put in. We did some minimal chipping that first year. You know, equipment is a little more antiquated, but still workable, you know, definitely more workable than what we had for paving. And so it is something we absolutely can do. I just don't feel this year with our staffing levels that we can adequately chip.
what
Where
about
we're
at
at.
least marking
Well, that was going to be one. It's on my other list of things to talk about. I really would like a decision from the board moving forward on how you feel about the chip sealing, because if we're not going to chip, what I would like to do is immediately get stripes on that road. And that's really what we've been waiting for. Last year, you know, the last 2 years we were going to chip. That money was earmarked for that. ITD had other plans that were not communicated with us, and they routed all of their detour traffic on the roadway. So we couldn't have closures for that. And they were doing bridge work above. So North Frontage Road, it wasn't even like we could reroute them there. It was really just a mess. So we had to forfeit our project,
That's right.
unfortunately.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. Okay.
What would it cost to bid out approximately to bid out the chip sealing on Old Silver Valley Road?
Silver Valley Road is a little bit of a wider road. You know, if you think about what we have, 200,000 that we put into the Pine Creek project, and that was bidding out. There was a little bit of repair in there, so this one would most likely be more than 200,000 to do that because of the width. You know, and then some areas when you get around Silverton, you know, it's 4 lanes, and to do full width, it's, you know, it's definitely adding some lane miles to that.
Okay. Because I know, maybe we can figure out how much, because they're going to do the airport.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one out of Spokane Valley that came in quite a bit lower than anybody else.
Oh.
I would just,
Sure.
like $100,000 less. And
Well, and you know, a lot of times with
they're
road,
piggybacking.
sure, and with road shipping projects, we could take some of the money from that striping line, because a lot of times when we do it for our roads that are striped, that's in the bid package that, you know, they come back in and they'll, you know, either in-house stripe or they'll sub out the stripes. So, you know, that would be suitable to do with that. I mean, we still would need to use some striping for, you know, the other end of the valley, but for that section, you know, we figure it would be $15,000 to $20,000 to stripe that section of roadway at least.
Yeah, let me get with Trey to see what our square foot per foot,
Perfect.
and then I'll just let you know, and then you can just, if it's too much, then we'll have to figure something else out, but
Sure,
at least to try.
Sure.
Yeah,
that would be great.
okay.
We have had a failure that is similar to this on Pritchard Creek Road. That's the road that goes the cutoff from Coeur d'Alene River Road that takes you up to Murray.
Mhm.
And it's a smaller section. It's one lane, and it blew out. That one's a little bit different because it wasn't just all of the layers. There was actually proper pavement underneath it. You know, the layers and the pavement have blown out. They were able to remove some of that. Our employees were able to remove and patch some of that a couple of months ago, but it really is a Band-Aid patch. And so that is something that I would like
Okay.
to look at. It's not a huge length. I mean, I'm not asking to do
Okay.
the whole road by any means. I'm looking at approximately 250 to 300 feet in length. They're 12-foot lanes, so, you know, we'd be looking at, you know, roughly 24 feet wide.
Okay.
And so that can be done relatively inexpensively, and I think that I can put that together. Even if we don't dip into the chipping,
Mhm.
we have a county projects budget that is still untouched because we've been really conservative with the SRS. We have a road construction budget in there, and so I think that between those two lines, I'd like to move forward on fixing that
Okay.
smaller section. That is a very, very heavy traffic. It
Yep.
sees a lot of truck traffic, and once that patch goes, we're going to need to do something. I'd like to take care of it before the patch
Okay.
goes.
Okay, I would,
What do you need, permission?
Just basically, I want to communicate with the board because we've been so scaled back that these are the things that I'm feeling like we need to do that I'd like to move forward.
Okay.
This is a little different scenario since we're tightening our belts a little bit until we hear, you know, where we're at with the SRS. Hopefully we'll get a vote by, you know, July 4th, like they're saying we might. Hopefully it'll go in our favor.
I think we can, you know, really go forward with that one.
Okay.
And, you know, depending on the cost of
Sure.
whether you have to notice it.
It's going to be minimal, so we won't have to
Okay.
notice it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this next one, the Old River Road, do we want to look and see what the cost would be to just
Yeah, I would be.
pulverize it?
I would
and
be
then
happy to do that. I
Maybe
will.
get some public feedback in case we, you know, just to see.
I
what-
think that's not a bad idea. That's one of my concerns, and I don't know like legalities, you know, for us in a road that services residents, you know, what needs to happen if we downgrade the surface like that. You know, they've lived on a paved road for so many years. They purchased their property on a paved road, but the condition of the paved road, we can either maintain it or we can't, and that's kind of where we're
And
at.
that's the
with that.
thing is what's nice about, you know, the old gravel roads is you can just go and put a blade over it. It's perfect again instead of waiting.
Yep.
2
And
months.
if it's something that, you know, we will certainly have more conversations about, but looking at, you know, magging
Yeah.
the roads because there are certain roads that would be beneficial. We wouldn't have to mag all of our roads like that, but certain higher traffic roads would absolutely benefit from that.
Yeah, exactly. Right, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. The cost for the mag comes in at roughly, I don't know what it'll be this year. Costs seem to be going up. It's about $7,000, give or take a little bit, for a big, you know, truckload of it.
Okay.
So,
Okay. All right. So does anybody else have any?
I guess my only other thing is we do really need to start looking at the drainage,
yes.
trying to figure something out. Some of the ditches are filled in. Some areas I see where there should be culverts placed.
Yeah,
under
there
the
are not
driveways.
culverts.
And I know we are only given so much, you know, as far as help fiscally
Right.
to get these things done. But yeah, I think that's another big thing we need to start looking at on Old River Road is the drainage issues.
So some of the people that their approachments, they should have put
There should have been
culverts in.
culverts.
Okay.
What we see a lot, well, I kind of see it everywhere, but what we see a lot in our county is our department's so much better about it now than they were 10 years ago, 15 years ago. When there's any new construction or any improvements to an approach, we do require them to get an approach permit from our office and pay that fee. When that happens, the application has gone through by our office, then a site visit is conducted with our supervisor and a representative of our office with the property owner. It's determined whether or not a culvert is there, the size of the culvert, and we will not sign off on that. If it's a new build, it can hold up their certificate of occupancy. So planning and zoning works very well with us, particularly in the last couple of years. We've really been good at communication. But there are a lot that we're not. You've been there forever. They're kind of grandfathered in. So at that point, it would be on our department to take up the driveway to put the culvert in. Whereas if we can catch it when they're doing it, the cost of the culvert and the installation is on them. We inspect it because once we sign off on it, then we take over, because it is within our right of way.
That's right.
Yeah.
So then we take over that. So we need to make sure that it's up to standard before we take on. And then historically, I hate to use that word all the time, but that hasn't always happened.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which
But
is
yes.
good, at
I
least it's
understand
being done now.
Yep, the ditching in all of the districts has gotten so far behind in the past 10 plus years that that district has been out ditching and patching for weeks, and since we've gotten the nicer weather, and so they are kind of up the river on that side. I think they were doing some things. They had some huge issues on Walridge Road, so they were taking care of that. That road's not in the best shape, so they were having some issues that they were tending to this week. And I know that they had done some ditching on Old River Road and still plan on doing, additional ditching. So we'll try to work through that, 1 mile at a time and get things where we need to.
With one man less and.
And it'll be 2 next month. So that's our 5th person. We're losing another one from that district. So
All right.
Yep. Well, that's all you can do.
So for clarity, it sounds like everybody on the board's okay with proceeding with Pritchard.
Yes.
Okay.
For clarity, what's the next step on this Old River Road?
I mean, obviously, I will reach out to Forest Service and find out if they have any objections to us doing that.
Kind of notify the public that, hey, we're looking at, and there's pros and cons to that. The mag chloride, I've heard you have mag chloride, the dust abatement, it works perfect. I mean, then it actually, you can build a solid road out of it. And one of the things too is if we do leave it as pavement, we may have to, I'm concerned that with the more logging that's going to happen, they're talking about opening up the forest a little more.
Sure.
That, if we paved it, I mean, do we have to pave it to completely tear the road apart and build the road back up to make a stronger base in order for trucks to go over it so it doesn't ruin our new pavement?
Sure. Yeah, there are definitely some risks associated with that. I mean, it's paved to a certain standard. It's obviously not, paved like 6-inch thickness like a haul road would be. And not a lot of our roads are, unfortunately.
Exactly.
And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of the outlying areas.
That's what it's called, haul road.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And usually haul road is roughly 6 inches pavement thickness.
Okay.
So, from that, would you like me to post something publicly once I talk to Forest Service to maybe put something out, contact the newspaper? How would you like the public information to go?
I think anything that you can utilize to get the word out and maybe get some feedback from residents and the public.
Perfect.
Sure.
And then one last question about my budget. We have our line that we've kind of waited to spend off of, and it's the capital line for pickups. And normally we purchase 2 a year, because they're, part of our plowing fleet. And we kind of held off with the SRS, and we're getting to the point where if we're going to purchase this year, because they never have them ready on the lot, we're getting to the point where we're going to need a decision on that. Would you be okay with us putting out for bids for those at this point? Do you want us to wait until the SRS comes in?
How much are we talking?
We have just a hair over 120,000 in there. Yep.
Yeah, there were 120 last year. Well, I don't think it would hurt to just go out and look and see how much
yeah,
it
you can
cost,
get
and
Okay.
see what they, and see what
What we're looking at.
what we're
Yeah.
looking at, time and so forth, and getting them. And
Okay. Perfect.
what do you feel, Commissioner Ghost?
I'm struggling with how we're going to do it if we don't get the SRS funds.
Yeah.
Right.
As long as we have that in the back of our minds.
Sure. I mean, we can wait until we hear something. What we ran into last year, because we were also doing the same thing, because at that point we weren't overly sure. We were still waiting for some auditor things back, what our cash reserves looked like. And so we were conservative last year as well. And we waited. We put the bid solicitation out. I think the final day for us accepting bids was July 15th, and we had a hard time getting them in before the end of fiscal year. That being said, I mean, I'm open to that. If you want to wait a little bit longer, what may happen is there's that crossover period where they haven't come in, the fiscal year ends, and then the board would have to make a determination as to opening up next year's budget to finalize that. And so if you're okay with that, I'm okay with waiting a little bit. I just kind of wanted to let you know time frames, what we could be coming up against.
That might be even a better deal if you get with the clerk and see how we can, if we have to reopen the budget. I mean,
Sure.
that probably wouldn't. That would be better.
That way we're not spending before we know that they're
Exactly.
coming in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just figured we're getting further on into our fiscal year. There were some larger line items that we were kind of holding off on. I want to be conservative, but I don't want to not do what we need to do. And so I figured it was time to, especially with this happening at Old River
Yes.
Road. So, perfect. All
So
right.
we're going to go out to the public with the idea that we are considering turning this into gravel, not that we have decided. to
Correct.
turn it.
Yes. Yes. And that
I
we're
think we're going
asking
to get
for.
a lot of public feedback.
I think we are too. I don't know if the public feedback would be better suited if they call or send an email, or do we try to have a public meeting, not necessarily like a hearing or anything, but a meeting for public input, so that residents can come in person, even if it's an evening meeting, depending on what you guys think. I just want to make sure that that everybody's as informed as they can be, that we're considering something like this.
Yeah, and I think we need to make it exactly. It's like from milepost such and such and beyond's going to be pulverized, so that they know that not the whole.
Right, that we're not taking it all the way down to Silver Bridge. I mean, even though it may need it in most spots, that's not what we're considering right now. It's just this upper section that is just gone.
Yeah. Okay. Does that sound fair?
As long as we're leaving the door open to deciding, because if you've lived on a paved road for years and years,
It's my biggest concern with that, and I'll be interested to see the feedback. Maybe they've dealt with this road in this state for so long, they'll say, yeah, that's great. At least you can maintain that to a certain standard. So I'll be interested to see the feedback, particularly from the residents that live up there.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on, putting it out there and accepting like phone call, email feedback versus a public meeting?
I think it'd be a good place to start to see
Yeah.
if there's
Yeah.
very great if there's a lot of public
Sure.
interest, then we might want to go to the next step.
Okay. Perfect, because I'm open to anything at this point.
And
Yeah,
that's why we're noticing out to the public so that we
Yeah.
get feedback.
Yeah,
yep, absolutely.
yeah. Hear back from them.
Yep.
Yeah,
Because there
Get
are
their
other
opinion.
roads in the county. I think the upper end of the West Fork of Pine Creek with all the logging going on is starting to look just like that
Mhm.
last quarter mile. Or
yeah,
so.
and there are some sections that, primarily service residential areas. Old Farm Road is a prime example. Some of
Mhm.
those roads up page are in terrible shape,
And I think,
Um,
one of the things is, as a county, we got to really look at, what can we maintain and
Yes.
what we can't maintain.
Yeah.
Because if it, it's just,
Well, and, hopefully the SRS goes.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, we're probably going to have more discussions just like this,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Where do we stand at the moment with the chip oil? Then you're saying we don't have the staff to oil?
I was going to get
Going to get a
I was going to get with Trey to see what.
okay.
Yeah, I would
square footage and then
be,
just
I
see
would
how
be
much.
interested to
Yeah.
see, with what rates he came back at,
Yeah.
what we could do with that. Even if we can't do the full length, if we
Mhm.
could do
Exactly.
Wallace to Silverton or Silverton to Osborne
Do
and
one year,
phase
one the
it.
next
Yeah.
year.
Mhm.
Yep.
Anything is
Absolutely.
better
Yeah.
than nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you don't mind checking with him
I'll
and then
do
getting
that,
back
yeah.
with me, because I don't want to go out. I want to get out for
Soon.
paint quotes as soon
Yep.
as possible,
Yep.
but I
I
don't
will
want
do
to
it
get
right
out
after
for
this.
quotes if it's going to be part of the chipping.
Okay.
Section.
I'll do it right after we.
That would
after
be
this.
great.
Okay.
Perfect. Do you guys have any other questions for me about my budget or where we're at with things, since we're kind of in a meeting that we can kind of talk about that?
I really don't have anything at this point.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
So to chip, I'm going kind of back again. On Old River Road,
Mm-hmm.
it's about 50,000. Is that what you were saying to do the chip oil?
No, we would be using the chip oil line, but we would have somebody come in and pulverize it, and then grade it down, and then they would actually pave
Oh,
like 2 inches
okay.
over the top.
Okay.
So it would be more of a proper fix,
Okay.
That would
Right.
give us another,
Okay.
15, 20 years
Yeah.
versus, a Band-Aid patch.
Okay.
And that would be for like the roughly 700-foot length of that
Mhm.
section.
Okay. 700 foot. I have notes everywhere, and I'm just trying to catch
Sure.
what I wrote where for what.
Mhm.
So
Is the Pritchard Road ours or Schedule A?
It is ours. That
It
one
is
is
ours.
not on the Schedule A. It's a federal highway, so it is a roadway where we have applied for FLAP grants before.
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of those FLAP grants that don't have a match are in the safety realm. Like we had the striping and the signage and that one that they did up there, the guardrail, the rumble strips, and we had no match. But they do not include paving on those. So getting the ones with paving most often do require a pretty hefty match, whether it's 7.34%. Sometimes they're up as high as 10 or 20%
Okay.
on those. So,
Okay.
but that is also something that we could look at, building into our budget if that road is really not in the best shape.
Mhm.
But it's constructed a little better than something like Old River Road.
Yeah.
So some of the alligatoring will take longer to, do what it needs to do. It should have been replaced, years and years ago, but there's just been no budget for paving. I mean, that's something that we could absolutely look at doing, a pulverization and then, put 2-3 inches of pavement and do 1 mile at a time.
Mhm.
And come in and we could do something like that for roughly a mile. I mean, I think we could do it for, I don't know, depending on the width and how far they have to go down and how many inches. I mean, we could do something like $100,000 to get something like that done. And even if we take an approach on that road where we don't have to do the whole 6 miles, maybe we take the worst
phases.
mile and then we take the next worst mile
Okay.
and look at it, because it
Okay.
doesn't all need to be replaced.
Okay.
In
We
a
have
perfect
the
world, we could do
manpower
the
to
whole
pave.
thing. At this point, we do not, and we don't have the working equipment at this point.
We don't.
Mm-mm.
We're falling behind.
we are falling behind. The equipment's falling behind. The surfaces are falling behind. It's just years of not being able to do the maintenance that we need to do. If these roads
Takes
had been
money.
chipped on a 7-year cycle, you know, to chip 365 miles of roadway, to get it on a cycle is very expensive. You know, some districts have a $500,000 a year budget just for chipping,
Mhm.
and they have less road miles, less paved road miles than we do. So, and they're districts that you go into and you can see that. I mean, you can
Yeah.
see
Oh,
that
yeah.
that's getting done.
Mhm. Okay. All right. I don't see anything further. If anybody else does it,
No.
No.
okay.
Perfect.
Adjourned.
Thank